Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
A couple months ago, I felt that we had entered an important moment in the history of this country. We were finally beginning to listen to women about the ways in which men's actions affect them. The moment was long overdue. I was excited for that conversation and hopeful that it would result in real change that made life better for women all across the country and in every part of our society. Then the conversation turned to me. Over the last few weeks, a number of women have come forward to talk about how they felt my actions had affected them. I was shocked. I was upset. But in responding to their claims, I also wanted to be respectful of that broader conversation, because all women deserve to be heard and their experiences taken seriously. I think that was the right thing to do. I also think it gave some people the false impression that I was admitting to doing things that, in fact, I haven't done. Some of the allegations against me are simply not true. Others I remember very differently. I said at the outset that the Ethics Committee was the right venue for these allegations to be heard and investigated and evaluated on their merits, that I was prepared to cooperate fully, and that I was confident in the outcome. You know, an important part of the conversation we've been having the last few months has been about how men abuse their power and privilege to hurt women. I am proud that during my time in the Senate, I have used my power to be a champion of women, and that I have earned a reputation as someone who respects the women I work alongside every day. I know there's been a very different picture of me painted over the last few weeks, but I know who I really am. Serving in the United States Senate has been the great honor of my life. I know in my heart that nothing I have done as a senator, nothing, has brought this honor on this institution. And I am confident that the Ethics Committee would agree. Nevertheless, today I am announcing that in the coming weeks, I will be resigning as a member of the United States Senate. I, of all people, am aware that there is some irony in the fact that I am leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls campaigns for the Senate with the full support of his party. But this decision is not about me. It's about the people of Minnesota. It's become clear that I can't both pursue the Ethics Committee process and at the same time remain an effective senator for them. Let me be clear. I may be resigning my seat, but I am not giving up my voice. I will continue to stand up for the things I believe in as a citizen and as an activist.
Wow. All right, so run for president. Apparently you can sit in the Oval Office, you can run for president, you can win. if you, say that you can, you grab women and you just start kissing them, which is apparently what, he does. I mean, I guess that qualifies him not to be the junior senator from Minnesota, but it does qualify him to be president of the United States. Although now you realize that it does also qualify you to be junior senator from Alabama. So maybe you should run for that. I mean, this is so bizarre. I can't even tell you. And I have such mixed feelings about this because some of you know, some don't. If you're new, you don't know this story. If you've followed me for, many, many years, especially through the Air America years where I worked with Al Franken, my show followed his each and every day. And so I worked in close proximity with Al every single day. Every day. And so I know him. I know him. And he may have the biggest ass in the Senate. He's got this giant, outsized ass. But he is certainly not the biggest ass in the Senate. And if we continue down this bad road, you're going to have Roy Moore, who's going to take assholiness to a whole new level. That said, the Democratic Party ganged up on Senator Al Franken and demanded that he resign. In 2008, the Democratic Party ganged up on me because of some stand-up comedy bit that I had done in San Francisco on a Saturday night on my off time, on my own time. And Al Franken did not defend me. And that is why I don't like him. And people have asked me a million times why I don't like him. And I've made jokes. Well, he didn't invite me to the launch party of this network that I was launching on with him, and all these stupid things. But the real reason is because in 2008, when I had done stand-up comedy in a nightclub in San Francisco on a Saturday night on my own dime and was talking about things like Elliot Spitzer and hookers that charge $4,000 an hour, and I wondered aloud from the stage, how gorgeous do you have to be to get $4,000 an hour? And I said, perhaps you have to bring your own sunset. And I knew in my case that would be what I would have to bring. So then we downshifted into all the F and W's in the party. And we got into a conversation about Hillary picking off delegates that were already pledged for Barack Obama, etc., etc. And somebody who is now departed from this earth, I mentioned as being somebody who was playing the race card against Barack Obama on behalf of Hillary Clinton, and I called her the same thing. She went on Fox News as a Democrat and called for my head on a silver platter. This tape played incessantly on Fox News to the point where the Democratic Party ganged up on me and called the limousine liberals that ran that network and said, you have to get rid of her. She has to go. And they suspended me indefinitely, a term of art I had never seen ever in a legal context and did not know what it meant. Did it mean I'd ever get my microphone back? Did it mean I would get paid? Did it mean I could work? What did it mean? Was I released from my contract, in which case I could take another job, which was already offered to me so that I would not miss paychecks? Some other people wanted my services, wanted my show. And Al Franken remained extremely silent on this issue. And of course, he could have said, as a stand-up comic, as somebody who did comedy, made off-color jokes, I want to vouch for the veracity of, the quality of her character, and this was just stand-up, or never said a word and allowed all this to take place when the Democratic Party ganged up on me. And that is what happened to him. And my feeling isn't that it's karma or any of those crazy things where I feel satisfied. Instead, I know it was wrong then and it's wrong now. And I can't stay silent, although he did, because he had bigger fish to fry in politics and didn't want to alienate the Democratic Party machine. That doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it something that I want retribution for. I feel no satisfaction in any of this whatsoever. I am literally, I'm tired of crying because of things, that happened back then. I'm so tired of crying about it. I cried so many tears about it. It's unbelievable, really. And frankly, I feel like I could cry again today over Al Franken. I mean, it's so ironic to me that, all those tears that I shed about what happened there are now, in my eyes again today because of what happened to one of my colleagues at that place. It just boggles my mind how it never, ever ends because the Democratic Party doesn't have a strategy of winning. Now, the Republicans are running Roy Moore with the full force of all their RNC money behind a man who's been accused of pedophilia, trolling malls, hunting down teenage girls, underage girls, incessantly. There are 50 witnesses. And Al is being accused, the last accuser literally accused Al of taking a photo with her and grabbing her by the waist. The waist? And what I know happened there in the Senate is the women senators were talking about this incessantly. And they were talking about it everywhere. They were talking about in the halls of the Senate office buildings, in the bathrooms at the Senate office buildings. And they were wondering, and the conclusion had become, if one more woman comes forward, we're going to have to do something about Al Franken. Now, you're telling me that the next woman who came forward, whose story is that she was a staffer to a member of Congress, she won't put her name out there and she won't say which member of Congress she was a staffer to in 2006 when we worked together. But I remember that Al interviewed people from opposite sides of the aisle, from the same side of the aisle, from, all sides of the aisle. He was, and you're telling me that people in the Senate didn't overhear these conversations that Kirsten Gillibrand and other female senators were engaged in, going, okay, look, if one more woman comes forward, we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to intervene. We're going to have to tell him he's got to go. We're going to have to gang up on him, whatever it was, right? And that nobody overheard those conversations in the office space that is the Senate Hart Building, or I think he's in the Hart Building. Anyway, and that they didn't call a friend of a friend and say, hey, you know what the rumor is up here in the Senate? One more woman comes forward. Now, all of a sudden, a woman comes forward and says, in 2006, she was a staffer to a Congress member who was being interviewed by Al Franken at Air America. And that she was gathering her belongings after the show was done to leave, and Al kissed her in a way that she felt diminished her, or was an assault. And that woman was the one that actually caused Chuck Schumer to go to Alan Franny's apartment and say, it's time to go, you have to resign. And then the next woman that comes out is a woman who says that she was taking a photograph with Al and he grabbed her by the waist. Somehow this rises to... Now, here's the thing about the winning, okay? If the Democrats want extremely clean hands to prepare for the onslaught against Roy Moore, the pedophile, after he wins next Tuesday, that's one thing. But to equate Al Franken's behavior, which is well known to me and every person who ever worked with him every single day, as being non-malicious, non-aggressive, not unsexual, I would say, then there's something so wrong. There's something so wrong with their ability to judge what a spectrum looks like, or what real assault victims are thinking about being grabbed by the waist. It makes you nauseous. If you've ever really been sexually assaulted, then the idea that what Al Franken does or did was sexual assault, or somewhere on the spectrum of an assault, is insane, and it's vomit-inducing. It's nauseating. Because assault or rape or aggressive power being lorded over you by a man is not a kiss. Or taking a photo and having him put his hand around your waist. It's just that free. But I got to tell you, there is no strategy here, because you must remember, when Al Franken ran for the Senate, he won in a recount against Norm Coleman, a Republican, by 312 votes. That's how tenuous a Minnesota election, a special election, would be for the Democrats. There is no strategy here.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hey everybody, it's Brett from the Randi Rhodes Show, and all I want for Christmas is an impeachment. But the next best thing is working at the Randi Rhodes Show, and that can't happen without your support. Let's help Randi make this a hard truth holiday season, as she can't do that without your support. So please keep listening and buy a stinking podcast.
Happy holidays, jerky fans. Herky Jerky knows it's the season to enjoy the world's best jerky and meat sticks, and they want you to save a bundle while doing it. Herky Jerky, first of all, would like to thank you all you fiercely loyal customers, because they had their most successful year thanks to you, despite Mother Nature doing its worst. Jason at Herky Jerky is so grateful that you enjoy his products, and everyone at Herky Jerky is so glad to provide them. So, as a special thank you, Herky Jerky is serving up their best offer of the year for Christmas giving. $10 off any order of $60 or more, or $15 off any order $100 or more without a promo code. Just visit herkyjerky.com. And the now famous bacon jerky, new fat-free and delicious turkey jerky, and all four of the new nitrite and preservative-free flavors, plus good old beef jerky, and all the exotic game jerkies make perfect holiday gifts. Buffalo, elk, venison sticks, 3 different varieties of beef smokies, all make great stocking stuffers. So choose your favorites now. Take advantage of the savings, which also includes free shipping on any 2 packs or more. Everyone at Herky Jerky would like to wish a safe and happy holiday season to all of you, and thank you once again for your loyalty. This offer starts today and it goes through all of December. Happy holidays from herkyjerky.com.
Whether you're listening to me, Mark Levine, each Monday and Wednesday,
or me, Leslie Marshall, each Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday,
you can hear us 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
Matt Lauer joins a long line of people accused of sexual harassment. Many of them have been fired. Whereas the conservatives, the people in politics, the people who have been accused of far, far worse than even these folks, people like, I don't know, an accused child molester by the name of Roy Moore, or maybe a certain guy who bragged about grabbing women by the, I guess I'll say it, by the pussy, bragged about it and had dozens of women accuse him of touching them inappropriately. That guy, what's he doing now? He's playing golf, I think. He's also, unfortunately, President of the United States. Again, that's Mark Levine every Monday and Wednesday.
And Leslie Marshall each Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
All right, 24 after, Rick in Los Angeles. May I help you?
Hello?
Nicholas in San Cristobal.
Randi Rhodes, wow, long time. First, just let me say, I'm not usually speechless, as you might remember a couple of times. But, you there?
Yes.
I got some funny beeping, and I barely hear you, but if you hear me okay, I'll just say, first of all, how absolutely extraordinary. I just listened to you go through your history with Al Franken.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, at the end of all that, you were able to stand up as a rational, thinking, logical, extraordinarily decent woman and say what you did at the end about not wanting to, rip him a new one and understanding what has gone so horrifically wrong with all of this supposed high moral ground that so many Democrats want to be taking with him when in fact he did nothing remotely equal to what Moore and Trump have done. Moore, of course, doesn't admit it. Trump did. I almost don't know what to say. I wanted to say when I first called in how absolutely horrified I am by Franken's essentially being made to resign, when in fact it's not so much in my mind, poor Al, it's poor us.
Yeah,
we
me too.
need Franken, right?
Yes. I agree with you. There is no strategy here whatsoever. It's
perfect word.
Yeah. And listen, the idea, I know him, and I know that this is not, it doesn't rise to the occasion of,
right.
But I also know what it's like to have the entire force of the Democratic Party come down on your head, and that is what happened here. And the Democrats are making a huge mistake.
Well, I'll tell you what I did. After I listened to Franken resign, I called I wrote, actually, had to email Democrats abroad. You may remember I live in Mexico. And I am resigning from the Democratic Party, and I'm going to register as an independent, and I am not sending any more donations to them. This is despicable. To say that they are shooting themselves in the foot is to say the absolute least I can think to say. They are destroying them. This is suicide by high moral ground or something insane going on.
Yeah. No, there's no question. This is suicide, and it's what they do all the time. I mean, look, just to put it in context, when they came after me, there were maybe 5 people in the whole country, with the intelligence, with the audience, with the following, with 3 million people listening to them every single week, and they went after one of those, me, and took us off the air. I mean, that is insane. Who does that?
Insane people do it. The Democrats, have obviously lost their collective mind.
They lost it a long time ago. They lost it a long time ago, which is why I keep telling you, I am not a party person. I have not given a nickel to the Democratic Party. I will not give a nickel. When they call my house, and they call my house all the time because, you give to Bernie, you show up on the Senate campaign committee's, call list, I hang up on them, or I tell them. I sit there and I take the time to tell the 19-year-old volunteer what I do, what they did, who I am, in the party, and why I'm a persona non grata to them, and how could they possibly ask me to contribute to their craziness? I have no interest in giving them money, but I remain a registered Democrat because I live in freaking Florida with closed primaries, where if I registered as an independent, I would not be allowed to vote in a primary. And one of the greatest pleasures I had in 2016 was voting for Bernie. And it wasn't as you can now see, I am not a grudge holder. It had nothing to do with Hillary. It had to do with Bernie's being much closer to FDR's New Deal than any other candidate that was, running. I am not a grudge holder. I can see who's good and who's bad, just by the way that they vote. I don't need to like you to vote for you. Jack in Tucson.
Hi, Randy. You have such a very rational approach to this whole thing. I really appreciate this. We're at a cultural crossroads here. We've turned a corner, I think.
Yeah, I do too.
On this behavior that the way that men have treated women, especially through my lifetime. I'm the same age as Al Franken. Actually, I'm a little older. I've seen this. Everyone has seen this, and I'm not going to condone his behavior. He doesn't condone his behavior,
right?
But he was a product of his culture. That culture is gone as of. A few weeks ago. That culture is on its way out. He has expressed his regret. He recognizes his errors. He's asked forgiveness. He has been a champion of women's issues in the Senate.
He has, and he's very self-aware at this point in his life, which is, kudos to him. I know men that, in their 60s who have no idea that there's a world outside their head.
Yeah. So what's happened to this idea of perhaps a teachable moment here?
Right.
You know?
And I'm
This is a
afraid that
teachable
we're going to
moment.
squander it. I'm afraid that we are going to just take it and throw it away because there is no spectrum. There is no, there's no intent that people are factoring into these things that men do. You know, the idea of rape is not sex. The idea of rape is power. The idea of assault is not sex. It's I'm bored. My libido is knocking. You're here. I'm going to take advantage of you. You know, or lording your power over somebody who is a subordinate at work because they're there. You can prey upon them. And, if you go and tell anybody, A, no one will believe you, or B, you'll be the problem and you'll be removed. So if you want to work, shut up. You know, that is not Al. Okay, Al did not kiss you hello like that, full frontally, which I said day one he does, to intimidate you or to minimize you or to, lord his power over you. No, he did it because he wanted to be liked, and that's a different
He's a
intent.
gregarious guy, you know? He's gregarious. You can tell by that. You know, he's...
Well, I know
He's a people person.
I have known gregarious wild swines, but he is not a wild swine. He's just he wants to be liked. I mean, he's got this need to be loved, and that's why he's an entertainer.
I agree.
And the difference between me, the kind of entertainer I am, and the kind of entertainer he is I don't need to be loved. I need to be heard.
Well, I hope somebody in the Democratic Party is listening to this show because they are really making a big mistake getting rid of Al Franken. He is the best voice we've had in the Senate.
He's been good.
Aside from Bernie. Really.
And
thanks, Randy. I'll go now.
Thank you. We have some great people in the Senate. We have Elizabeth Warren. We have Bernie. There are some really, really fabulous senators. I mean, Elizabeth Warren today in The Guardian, there's a 10-page editorial she wrote about how to fix the economy, what it would take for real to help the middle class. And in the meantime, what do we have coming out of the House? Oh, you know something? Sometimes I'm too smart for the room. But other times, the predictions I make are so close to them happening that you can connect the dots, okay? Remember I said to you the other day when they voted on this tax cut that, you're not even an egg timer. An egg timer will run out before you hear Paul Ryan start talking about slashing welfare and Medicaid and Medicare to pay for these freaking tax cuts, right? They were going to ram it through with, adding a $1.5 trillion to the debt, right? And then on the back end, they were going to go, oh, the debt's through the ceiling. We have to cut entitlements. Check out what he said on the radio.
House Speaker Paul Ryan, he's already setting his sights on the next GOP project, entitlement reform. During a radio interview, Ryan placed Medicare and welfare reform at the top of his list. Listen.
Frankly, it's the healthcare entitlements that are the big drivers of our debt. And then welfare reform, too. We think it's important to get people from welfare to work. We have a welfare system that's basically trapping people in poverty and effectively paying people not to work, and we've got to work on that.
There's never an egg timer around when you need one. Perhaps now you understand when I say this, what I mean. I told you. They are going to pass this tax cut, and then and everybody go, where are the deficit hawks? You'll see them on the back end. As soon as these corporate tax breaks go into effect, which will do absolutely nothing for the middle class, they will start saying, we have to get that damn debt down, and they're going to cut the middle class Social Security COLA adjustment, cost of living adjustment. They're going to go after Medicaid. They're going to go after Medicare. They're going to go after welfare for, people who temporarily need a little assistance. I mean, I saw this thing, right? And I see Minnesota going to the Republicans in 2022 because, listen, Mark Dayton is the governor of Minnesota. He will appoint somebody, most likely his lieutenant governor, and she... it would be great. They'll all go, oh, well, we got a woman in there now. So we got a person without a penis, so don't have to worry about it. It's so stupid because she apparently does not. Her name is Tina Smith. She's the lieutenant governor under Mark Dayton in Minnesota. She, a wonderful woman, has absolutely no desire to run for the Senate or to run for governor or to, pursue a higher elected office than where she is now, which is lieutenant governor. And so they'll appoint her. They'll put her in Al Franken's seat. And then she won't run in 2020, meaning we will be running somebody who doesn't have the benefits of incumbency, which are benefits, right? And we'll just be running against the winner of an open Republican primary, the winner of an open Democratic primary, and the winner of an open a Libertarian primary. They will face off in 2020 when Al's term would naturally end. And I also want you to remember that Al's been doing a really exceptional job, although, you know, I mocked him. He walked backwards into the question that Jeff Sessions voluntarily answered, a question Al Franken just simply asked and said, if there was Russian involvement, what would you do? And Jeff Sessions volunteered, well, I've been called a surrogate a time or two, and I've never seen any Russian meetings. I've never met with Russians. I don't know one on the campaign ever met with, and it all turned out to be a lie, perjury under oath. Now, remember that the job that he's doing on the Judiciary Committee, who is going to take his place on Judiciary? This is stupid. Kevin in Fresno. Richard in Chicago.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Listen, I'm going to offer you an apology because for years, while I listened to you, and I often questioned why you didn't support the Democrats. But after today, after watching Al Franken resigning, I now understand why you don't identify yourself as a Democrat. And after today, I can't identify myself as a Democrat. Now, I won't take the steps of filing as an independent, because you are absolutely correct that I won't be able to, vote in a primary.
Right.
But today's action opened up a Pandora box. This was stupidity on a whole different level. And to equate what Al did and amounted to sexual abuse, sexual assault, is just...
It's incredible. That's, uncredible. It's not credible, is what we're all groping to say. There is,
right.
And I tweeted Leanne Tweeden this morning, and I wrote happy dear. Yeah, and I wrote happy dear. I don't think she ever intended this to go where it went. But you know what? I think she got played because Roger Stone knew that there were going to be allegations before she made them. Is it possible to get played by the Republican Party without even knowing it? Oh, yeah. And I think this is what we're seeing. And I think the last woman that came out, because she won't identify herself, I have no ability to say whether or not she's got a credible story or not. Although I was there in 2006, and perhaps I would remember if she would tell me which member of the House she was, a staffer for. Maybe I could rack my brain and see if I could remember. Yeah, but she won't put her name on it, and I just find it so interesting that the women in the Senate were talking aloud in bathrooms and public hallways, and that all of a sudden and they said one more woman, and all of a sudden an unidentified woman, and this is why I believe Al denied point blank.
It ever happening.
That ever happened, while he did apologize to Leanne Tweeden for the way he made her feel.
Yes.
Which is a very self-aware thing to do and say, especially in public. It's hard to do. So this just reeks. It just reeks. And the Republicans, it's so interesting. Look at their support for Roy Moore, and Blake Farenthold is there with naked pictures of him rolling around the internet. And all these other abuse, right? They just want to win.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Hi, this is Scotty, Randy's producer, here to remind you it's December, a month that's known for its holidays. You got your Christmas, your Hanukkah, your Kwanzaa, your Boxing Day, Festivus. No matter what holiday you celebrate, it's a time we all come together with our families and friends. And since you're all my family and friends, I like to wish each and every one of you a happy/merry holidays of your choice. Now, if you're still looking for the perfect gift, I, Scotty, got you covered. Go to randyrhodes.com and buy your friends or family a stinking podcast. Think about it. What better way to show your loved ones that you really care than sharing with them the knowledge of truth and facts? And if you can't stand the people in your life, but you still want to do something great for the holidays, here's an idea for you. Support the show. By supporting the Randi Rhodes Show, you help keep us going into the new year. And if 2017 was a sign of things to come, we'll need Randi more than ever. Go to randyrhodes.com to buy a stinking podcast and or support the show.
Hello, Progressive Voices tune-in listeners. I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week. Large healthcare companies are closing hospitals and services in rural areas and leaving patients in those areas without access to essential care.
We actually saw pediatric patients on the inpatient care unit. There was a 50-bed nursing home facility that was there. That also closed. And if we'd had the impact study, we would have seen that was a huge impact on our community. And now the OB department, which is really hitting the youth of our community, has also closed.
So now you say they don't do an impact study, which I think is by design so that you can't see the impact. But surely as a nurse, you are seeing the impact of people coming in sicker and sicker?
Oh, definitely. And our community and outreaching community, Washington County, is definitely one of the poorer communities of the state of Maine. And the people that are being impacted, they're already impacted anyway. You know, some of those patients that were pregnant didn't even have the money to be able to buy, get a taxi cab to go to their regular appointment here in Calais. So, I don't understand how they think that these people are going to be able to financially go even further distances.
So this bill, LR 2713, would mandate that they do an impact study,
how it will affect the community, and to hold hospitals accountable for elimination of major care facilities.
Correct. Number one, nurses don't give up. We're definitely going to be there still as advocates for our community members. We are getting involved in the state level as well. We're going to advocate. We're going to speak up for our patients in the community, and we'll be able to bring this forward so that more people can understand exactly what's going on.
Check out our show at nursetalksite.com and listen every Saturday and Sunday right here on Progressive Voices.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on randyrhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or progressivevoices.com now.
All right, Rick in Los Angeles.
Hey, Randy. Sorry I missed the call earlier.
Yes, you did.
Use the restroom.
Yeah, thank you for bringing my show to a screeching halt when I was buttering my ass because I was on a roll.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Well, anyway, hopefully I can make it up to you.
Okay.
It's clear that the purity police wing of the Democratic Party is now in full ascendance, led by Kirsten Gillibrand, who's got presidential ambitions of her own, and now that Franken is out of the way, she'll just have to fight with Kamala Harris and maybe several other Democrats,
Well, it does seem to me that there's the political way to use this is that they want a female president more than they want a majority in the Senate right now. I can't figure out why. Why would they make some moral equivalency between, a full frontal, overly affectionate greeting that he has, down to a science, he does it to everybody, or, and a guy who trolled them all for young teenage girls so he could put a blankie on his floor at his apartment at his house in the woods and take their clothes off.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get the proportionality. It's sort of like saying that you're going to give somebody the same sentence for jaywalking as for, let's say, vehicular homicide.
Or rape.
Or rape. Yeah. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. I mean, they're trying to snatch,
failure out of the
feet, or whatever, or no, they're trying to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, I guess.
Yeah, they are, and they're always looking for the defeat. They always go searching for it, and they find it. Lo and behold, they find it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no strategy at all.
There isn't. There is no strategy. And check this out. So you've got equivalency here to look at. You got Roy Moore, full support of the President of the United States, full support of the Republican National Committee, money, everything, endorsements, tomorrow, President Trump is going to go to Jacksonville to campaign for Roy Moore. Oh, my God. Bannon is campaigning for Roy Moore. They are, because they want to win. Here's the difference. The Republicans say, all we care about is winning. And once we're in office, we'll figure out what to do.
Right.
And the Democrats say, we have to be morally upright and stand up guys, and even if it costs us a loss.
Do the Dems really think that voters in Alabama give a shit about, Roy Moore? I mean, 70% of Republican women believe Moore.
I know, I saw that.
In that state, it's like, we're not even.
What's really disgusting? Well, I know.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part. We're not in the same reality. And one of the big reasons is we don't have the media they have to propagandize the people at the same levels. And it's because they go after their own, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, we basically do the Republicans' bidding. I mean, they're laughing their asses off because Franken was the most strident questioner of, the administration's representatives.
Yeah.
Like with Sessions. I mean, he caused him to get recused, basically, and allowed Mueller to be appointed. And Bob Mueller, if you're listening, it's time to indict Donald.
Oh, come on, Mueller. I say it every morning. I say it every morning when I wake up. Howard says he tweeted, to which I respond, come on, Mueller, come on. And then we actually kiss each other good morning. But not before Howard comments on whether or not Trump's tweeted, and not before I say, come on, Mueller, which is really Mueller, but I always say Mueller.
Yeah, I used to say Mueller, but I say Mueller.
It's Mueller. It's Mueller. And then the day he indicts him, I will say Mueller. Just like the day. No, really, the day that I graduated basic training, they finally called me by my proper last name. Up until then, they called me Airman Button. And they and they refused to say my name properly, just to irritate you. I mean, it's just part of the treatment. But then finally, at the end, when they were proud of me, they called me by my right name, and I will call Mueller by his right name as soon as Mueller indicts Donald Trump. Not indicts, but recommends charges against Junior. Can you believe Junior is asserting attorney-client privilege?
That is totally nuts. There's no basis for that. Just
what is
there's
it?
An attorney in the room. That's kind of like.
There wasn't even an attorney in the room. This is the crazy part. Okay, so and if that's the case, then Howard's always in the room. So anything I say to anybody is not admissible because Howard's in the room. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Privilege.
So what are you talking? But no, Junior was on the phone with Hope Hicks, who was on Air Force One,
right.
when Trump Sr. was crafting an excuse note for Junior regarding the Trump Tower meeting, and he said, and they were debating whether to make it long or short. So Junior wasn't on the plane. Junior was talking to Hope Hicks. Now, she's not an attorney. She's a model. She's an ex-model, for God's sake. All right, so you have an ex-reality TV star. You have an ex-model talking to a snot-nosed kid, and because there's a lawyer on the plane, somehow you know why they do this? Because they're stalling for time, because they know Mueller's got him. And so they are just stalling for time. He was there 8 hours yesterday refusing to answer questions and exerting attorney-client privilege that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, who's his attorney? What advice is being rendered by that attorney to him?
Well, his attorney is Fuertes or Fortis. I mean, he doesn't. He didn't. I bet you anything. He's got a client. Anybody's got any Trump for a client knows that the second that they start talking, they lose their case. So they don't want Donald Jr. to talk so much. So he said, you know what? When you get to the tough questions, just assert attorney-client privilege. We'll worry about it later. So now we're full circle. This is what Republicans do when presented with a problem. Just win, stall, whatever. We'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it later. Just win the case, win the election, win the primary. It doesn't matter. Say any damn thing you want.
Well, they're very good at that. They're very good at that.
And then people like me will say, don't they realize that there's tape and there's video now? Don't people understand? And they don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
Just win.
If Fox doesn't play the video, Randy, it doesn't exist.
For their voters, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
And then remember, we're also up against thousands and thousands of hours of talk radio. Thousands. And think tanks. And fake news sites. Gateway Pundit and Breitbart and Drudge Report and God knows, the Daily Caller and all millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars poured into the Project Veritas's, which Trump gave to. They support each other no matter what. And we eat our own. Tom in Santa Cruz.
Hi, Randy. I'd like to express one last desperate hope. Franken did not resign today. He said he'd be resigning in the next few weeks. And the election in Alabama is about 6 days away. So I'm hoping that if Moore wins, and McConnell's going to want to seat him right away, if they don't start an ethics investigation immediately, Franken can say, wait a minute, I was going to resign, but I would have taken the ethics investigation. Now you want to bring this guy in with all these allegations, worse than I had, and there's no investigation? I'm not resigning.
You know what, Tom? That is exactly what Howard is thinking.
Oh, okay.
Exactly what Howard is thinking. Howard heard the speech, and he's a lawyer, so he's a word parser, and he said, he said in the coming weeks. So maybe he's waiting for after Roy Moore's election, and then he'll rescind and say, if he's allowed, I need to go through the ethics investigation. I'm not giving up.
Also, I don't expect that. I rather expect that stinking McConnell to probably delay swearing in Franken's replacement until he can get a vote on the last version of his tax bill. That would be just like him. So Franken would be a fool to resign before that happens.
That's interesting. What do you do for a living, can I ask?
I'm retired, but I used to be a German literature major.
A what?
A German literature teacher.
Oh, my God. A German literature professor?
Yeah, well, I translated something for your show a while ago.
Oh, you're Joy's husband. Okay.
That's right.
All right. Okay. Thank you,
Kind of
honey.
weird.
Thank you, honey. Yes.
All right.
Thank you. That is a weird occupation. That's like Howard's got, what is he, your cousin? Who teaches Sanskrit. Sanskrit. A dead language. I mean, honestly, people make a living out there, and here we are, trudging through the wars. Barb in Oregon.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, Barb.
I was just wondering, how did Donald's note go? Please excuse Junior from prison today. His father is an idiot.
Yes, exactly.
I think right now the Democrats got a case of stupidity on steroids.
Yep, they do.
And how is it going to work for them to have the high moral ground when you're dealing with people who are amoral?
I'm not sure what fantastical, thing they have in their head that, this is how it plays out. But this is not going to play out well for them. It just isn't. It absolutely can't. It won't. Tom's theory is Howard's theory, so that's like the little, reach for the unicorn, attempt. But it could be, it could be, that's what's going on. That the Democratic women wanted to make a stand and say that they asked Al to resign. Of course, the decision's up to Al. Al says in the coming weeks they seat Roy Moore, and he goes, "Okay, I'm not leaving."
Well, if you lay down on the floor, somebody's going to step on you.
Yeah, good one. Thank you, Barb. All right. John in Seattle.
Hi, Randy. This is John Stark. I'm calling from Whidbey Island near Seattle.
Okay.
I want to comment on the fact that Roy Moore is a really disgusting person. The one key thing that I see that they're doing with his actual reality is all these women are standing up for him, when in fact they should be trying to address their own ability to be honest about who they are as women. The actual people that Roy Moore either molested or was a predator to, these women should be taking issue with him being a public figure and then conducting himself this way. He's in a position of power, and he's basically using his position of being a public figure while being a predator.
Leave the predator part aside. I know that's disgusting to say out loud, but let's just do that for a brief moment and realize that this man will not live by the law. This man does not respect law. He doesn't respect Supreme Court decisions. He doesn't respect his fellow judges. He is a lawbreaker, and possibly with the pedophilia, he's a criminal. So when Donald Trump says that this man, you can't vote for Doug Jones because you don't want somebody soft on crime. Doug Jones is a prosecutor who prosecuted crime. In fact, he prosecuted terrorism. He prosecuted the Klan for terrorism, for killing 4 little girls in a church, an old cold case. He prosecuted Eric Rudolph for domestic terrorism. And Roy Moore is somebody that won't follow a court order to allow judges to issue marriage licenses for gay people when it is the law of the land. Roy Moore is somebody that moved a 5,000-ton rock into the Supreme Court without consulting his own fellow justices, and the judicial probate judges in Alabama voted him off the Supreme Court 2 times, and Roy Moore then says, oh, that's because they're homosexuals and transgendered. What? I mean, this is a man who is congenitally unable to see the world that he lives in, which is, as a judge, a world of laws and a world of orders that comply with the laws. This man can't see that. He only sees, like the cake person, okay? They only see their interpretation of the Bible, their interpretation of Sanskrit.
Exactly, Randy. One of the things, if you get a chance, and the listeners, they're actually listening in right now, if you guys get a chance, go to YouTube and look up Senator Eli Jackson from the hit movie The Birdcage, and look up a senator's morality. It is hilarious to listen to how directly it relates to what we're talking about with Roy Moore and President Donald Trump. Both men are totally detached from the fact of they don't own their reality. They don't own their responsibility to the nation or to themselves or to their community.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance, just go on to YouTube and look that up, and actually have a good listen to Gene Hackman going through his lines with Diane Weiss. And you'll just totally laugh your butt off at the simple fact that they're doing an exact dissertation on Roy Moore and Donald Trump.
I will. Those are 2 fabulous actors, both of them. I love Diane Weiss, and I love Gene Hackman. I've loved him since The French Connection.
and it's actually titled A Senator's Morality. It's about Eli Jackson. And the funny part is that Gene Hackman actually did it as a portion of his directorial debut. He went to the producers of The Birdcage and said, could I please research Roy Moore as my person?
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and that's the actual irony of the fact is that he used Roy Moore as the actual person that he did the character based of Eli Jackson is Roy Moore.
That's amazing. That's a great story. Okay, I will do it. I will absolutely do it. Thank you.
And then people can actually see it in context. And
I wish I could play it, but you can't because it's copyrighted material and we would be flagged by accident by the algorithm. I doubt Gene Hackman would have an issue. I doubt that Diane Weiss would have an issue, or anybody invested in the Birdcage would have an issue. But of course, there are no human beings anymore. It's an algorithm that's going to make a decision about whether or not I can show it to you, which really sucks, man. Really sucks. Oh, and YouTube's changed their policy. They're not going to let you put up the YouTubes anymore for your own monetization, meaning you can't make money off of YouTube as a content provider. Yeah, it's all going to change. You'll see. It's all going to change. This is what, and that was another big issue of Al Franken's, just as an aside. The very first issue he ever took up as a senator was net neutrality.
Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report. raging wildfire continues to burn in the heart of Los Angeles.
Southern California wildfires continue to rage out of control. Interior Secretary proposes shrinking even more national monuments. New study warns even more public lands at risk due to fossil fuel exploitation. Plus, good news for renewable energy. It's now cheaper than both coal and nuclear plants.
All of that good and not so good news straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Trump signed an order slashing the size of bears' ears and Grand Staircase national monuments. Yes, I can understand. No, hey, come on. It's reasonable that he doesn't care about them. They're just national monuments. They're not Confederate monuments.
Oh, man. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, as you reported in our previous Green News Report, the Navajo Nation and other American Indian tribes are suing the Trump administration over slashing the size of those national monuments, and now outdoor recreation company Patagonia has announced that they, too, will sue, calling his reduction of the size of bears' ears by 85% an extreme overreach in authority. The company also put a full-page banner on the front of their website, "The President Stole Your Land," and Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke says that that advertisement was shameful.
Well, it looks like it's a very unpopular move that Trump has made, and more on that in just a minute. First off, though, California's most destructive fire season on record has just gotten worse. Just weeks after deadly wildfires in wine country in Northern California, down here in Southern California, multiple wind-driven wildfires exploded across the region this week. As we go to air, 4 major active fires are seriously straining the region's emergency resources. In total, the fires have destroyed more than 300 structures, forced the evacuations of nearly 200,000 people, shut down hundreds of schools and major freeway arteries, and enveloped the Los Angeles region in smoke. Thankfully, no deaths or major injuries have been reported. The largest and most destructive fire has hit the historic beach city of Ventura, California, burning 80 square miles, covering a football field every few seconds. In a press conference on Wednesday, Los Angeles County Fire Chief Daryl Osby told residents in woodland areas to be prepared to leave at a moment's notice.
It's critically important if there's an incident in your area that you evacuate early. We're expecting wind gusts in some areas up to 80 miles per hour. If you see something, don't wait for the evacuation order, leave.
No official word yet on the causes of any of these fires. A multi-day Santa Ana wind event, the worst of the year, has created what the National Weather Service called, quote, a recipe for explosive fire growth.
The state of California uses a color-coded wind map, and the most extreme wind is purple. They have never used that before. They are using that today.
The region has had no meaningful precipitation since March. Because of global warming, California's winters are increasingly warmer and drier, and winter wildfires are increasing in frequency. Now fire season extends all year round. Meanwhile, in the wake of President Trump's slashing the size of 2 iconic national monuments to allow mining and drilling, Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke has now released a draft proposal for shrinking even more of America's protected national monuments, focusing on Cascade Siskiyou in Oregon and Gold Butte in Nevada. Zinke also proposed management changes for 6 more. That's code for allowing drilling, logging, and mining.
I can think of somewhere else I'd like to see some management changes.
In a statement, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon noted that national monuments generate millions in tourism for local economies, saying, quote, Donald Trump's rollback harms rural economic progress and job creation. And also, very disturbingly, Zinke proposes opening up vast marine ocean reserves to industrial-scale commercial fishing, areas specifically set aside to rebuild depleted fisheries, crucial for sustaining the nation's seafood supply. And now a new report this week calculates just how much of the American public's land may be at risk of destruction from the Trump administration because they sit atop fossil fuels. In a first-ever comprehensive analysis, Greenpeace found that more than 120 million acres of federally protected lands larger than the state of California contain or overlap fossil fuel reserves and could be next on the chopping block as Trump reshapes American land policy to benefit the fossil fuel industry. Finally, though, though, some good news for renewable energy. A new study finds the cost of new wind and solar projects is cheaper now than running existing coal and nuclear plants for electricity. The researchers project that as utility-scale battery storage comes online, renewables will outpace natural gas as well.
Of course they will, as those folks who give a damn have been saying for many years. For much more on all of these reports and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find us, follow us, and share us worldwide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island.
Please help Progressive Voices support the Green News Report by stopping by bradblog.com/donate.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Let's start with all of these revelations. Wray and Peter Strzok and all of these figures. Hillary Clinton supporters, Trump haters.
I think we now know that the Mueller investigation is illegitimate and corrupt. And Mueller has been using the FBI as a political weapon. And the FBI has become America's secret police.
Oh my
secret
God.
Surveillance, wiretapping, intimidation, harassment, and threats. It's like the old KGB that comes for you in the dark of the night, banging through your door.
By the way, this is not a game. This is not hyperbole you're using here.
No, ask Paul Manafort. They came for him and broke through his front door.
And if it can happen to him, Greg,
it can happen to all of us. Absolutely.
Yeah, with a federal court warrant. You know what I'm saying? Hello, everybody. It's Friday, you bastards. Okay. I had hoped for a happier show. It's not going to be. I have to say, Fox News is doing its damnedest to trash Mueller. And this is exactly what we were talking about prior to yesterday and parts of yesterday, that there is no attempt to say that Donald Trump is innocent of colluding with Russia. There's no attempt to say that Donald Jr. wasn't in touch with WikiLeaks. There's no attempt to say that they didn't lie to the FBI, that they didn't lie to Congress, that, Donald Trump Jr. is making up privileges that don't really exist. His father is suddenly attorney and he's an attorney, but they're really talking to Hope Hicks, who was an ex-model. I mean, just anything to trash Mueller, a lifelong Republican, by the way, who served both parties, presidents, as the head of the FBI and is now the special counsel, appointed by Rod Rosenstein, who was picked by Donald Trump. I mean, it's just a sick, insane, endless conversation that they're having with their viewers, all, three of them, that are still hanging on for dear life because the president's approval rating is so low. Oh, my God. 32% today, everybody. The president of the United States hasn't even completed a year in office, and already the United States of America can only conjure up 32% of the people that still support him. That is sick. That is sad. Oh, and by the way, the evangelicals, 17% dip in the support from evangelical Christians. Because I think they're slightly embarrassed about Roy Moore invoking their brand of religion over and over again to, say that, he can do whatever he wants to, little girls. Anyway, they are trying to degrade the authority, the veracity, the the investigation that Mueller is conducting. Why? Because I think that the conservative media has figured out that Donald Trump is guilty. I think that everybody has figured out that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians, was acting as a Russian agent, is blackmailable by the Russians, just like Michael Flynn was blackmailable by the Russians, just like Paul Manafort is blackmailable and was blackmailable by the Russians, to the point where, Manafort got a bail agreement that simply said don't talk to any Russian intelligence agents and don't talk to the press to influence the jury pool from which we will choose in order to try you. And what does he do? He reaches out to a Russian intelligence agent and starts ghostwriting an op-ed piece to go in the newspaper and risks his bail agreement. I mean, they can't help themselves. Now, we know Junior is, in touch with WikiLeaks. We know that at least nine members of the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, the Trump transition team throughout the whole process are in touch with the Russians over and over and over and over again. Subpoenas have gone out to Deutsche Bank to find, and Deutsche Bank fined for Russian money laundering, to find out, if there's any connection between Donald Trump's accounts and Russian banks. I mean, the whole thing is just so obvious. So Fox News is hell-bent on this. And this is why I'm telling you it's not a happy day. When Robert Mueller releases his report, when he's finished, when he's through, when all the indictments have gone out and all the plea deals and the proffers have been written down and documented and the evidence becomes presentable to the American public, everyone will be facing some sort of, justice, some sort of justice. Either they will get a pass because they cooperated, like George Papadopoulos, whose fiance, by the way, is all over the TV saying that, he was not a coffee boy. He was in touch with the Trump administration, with the Trump campaign every day. And they chose him because he had connections in Russia. That's his girlfriend, his fiance that's saying that. All right. So that said, Papadopoulos will get a certain, a pass because he cooperated. Perhaps Flynn will just plead guilty to lying to the FBI and nothing more because he cooperated. Manafort may or may not be cooperating, and so he may have to go to trial. The same with his partner, Robert Gates. We don't know, but I will tell you this. The one person who can't be charged in a criminal setting is Donald Trump Sr., the president. That will have to be left to Congress. Now, if Robert Mueller recommends an indictment for Donald Trump, it would be left to Congress to execute on that in the only venue that most legal scholars agree is available for justice for a president, and that is impeachment, which also you need to start hearing as indictment, because it's the only place a sitting president can be indicted, except they don't call it an indictment, they call it an impeachment. An impeachment is given as probable cause. They will list the reasons why they are indicting or impeaching the president, having met the bar of probable cause in a congressional context. And it doesn't have to be a crime. It could be a high crime. It could be a misdemeanor. It could be anything. It could be lying. It could be, the other day, Representative Al Green of Texas actually introduced articles of impeachment that had nothing to do with Mueller's investigation whatsoever. It had to do with the racial hatred that the president is perpetuating in the United States. It had, different, non-criminal but high misdemeanor charges about the president's endless racist rants and endorsement of people who say things like, well, slavery in Alabama was okay because that was the only time that families were very strong. That's what Roy Moore said about slavery. He said, well, at least back in the slavery days, families were very strong. Apparently, he's never experienced, any African-American family who was able to tell him the story of their ancestors who had their sons and daughters sold at auction, to break up the family. But anyway, I digress. So it doesn't have to be a crime. But what if Mueller issues a report and that report is devastating? And it says things like Donald Trump colluded or cooperated or changed the Republican Party platform for or is blackmailable by Vladimir Putin and Putin's government. What if he says all that and the Paul Ryans of the world, the Mark Meadows of the world, the Tea Party people, the free, what if they all say so and do nothing? Because they are the majority, they can actually do nothing. They can actually sit there, listen to the report, and say, okay, that's done. Let's move on. And do nothing. And do nothing. That is why it is so important to pay attention to these thousands and thousands of hours of conservative media and these crazy blogs and these crazy websites, Breitbart, Gateway Pundit, white nationalist, websites and Reddit accounts. They are all out there trying to convince the American public that a lifelong Republican former FBI director who served both parties' presidents, who has now been picked by Trump's own Justice Department to lead this investigation into whether or not Russia influenced the elections and whether or not the Trump campaign participated in that, all to discredit his work so that when he announces that it was not just, Junior, and it was not just Manafort, and it wasn't just Flynn, and it wasn't just, Papadopoulos, and it wasn't just Roger Stone, and it wasn't just Junior, that were all in touch with WikiLeaks and were, orchestrating or helping to choreograph the release of stolen documents that were hacked from the DNC by Russian intelligence, that Congress will then say the people don't care. They don't believe it, and so we don't have to do anything. I'm going to show you what Hannity is saying and doing. This is just crazy. I don't know if you know this, but Barack Obama gave a talk, like a panel conversation, where it's like one-on-one in Chicago. Not last night. I think it was the night before. And there was really no video to show you. There were transcripts, though. And apparently the transcripts made Sean Hannity call Barack Obama a Nazi. Again. Listen to what they're doing. This is so dangerous. I can't even stand it.
And also tonight, yes, no class, Barack Obama back again. What is he doing? Launching a new far-left attack against President Trump, warning that America could turn into Nazi Germany. Now, he's speaking at the Economic Club of Chicago, and Obama said the danger today is, quote, growing complacent. We have to tend to this garden of democracy or else things could fall apart quickly. That's what happened in Germany in the 1930s, which, despite the democracy of the Weimar Republic and centuries of high-level cultural and scientific achievements, Adolf Hitler rose to dominate. 60 million people died, so you got to pay attention, and you got to vote. All right, very cute, very clever, comparing the president in a subtle way to Hitler and Nazis.
I have audio of what Barack Obama said. And I will play it for you, but I want to play you something else, okay? Before I play it, this is what went on Fox News when Barack Obama was president.
Your President Obama did not
Not
back
my president.
The Manchurian candidate couldn't destroy us faster.
So I shamelessly say no. I want him to fail.
Headed towards socialism, fascism. They're marching us towards 1984.
Are you confident, 100% confident, and Barack Obama can do this job?
He wants to transform exceptional private enterprise America into neo-socialist Europe. Socialism.
It'd be like Hitler playing golf with Netanyahu.
I feel like we are talking to the Germans after Hitler comes to power.
This is what Hitler did with the SS.
They're the enemy.
Who's the enemy?
Obama!
You just think he doesn't care, huh?
I think that I really don't.
I think, if I may say so, there's just too many people who are not going to vote for a black candidate. But
especially a black angry candidate.
Who has a deep-seated hatred for white people.
I think he is using racial anxiety for political gain.
This guy is, I believe, a racist.
He did make a very racist comment.
I've got a president who I believe actively dislikes people like me.
We have to bend over, grab the ankles, bend over forward, backward, whichever, because his father was black, because this is the first black president.
Core ties to the African continent.
His having grown up in Kenya.
He is defending racists, and when you defend racism and defend racist acts, it's virtually the same.
Go ahead, say it. Where? In the hizzy.
Do we really have to have him in the white hizzy?
What's with all the hoods in the hizzy?
Kind of a boys in the hood handshake.
It's crazy. It's sick. It's sad. It's crazy. But here's Donald Trump.
If he has a birth certificate, he should release it. All I want to do is see this guy's birth certificate. If he weren't lying, why wouldn't he just solve it? And I wish he would, because if he doesn't, it's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics and in the history period. Our current president came out of nowhere. In fact, I'll go a step further. The people that went to school with him, they don't even know, they never saw him. They don't know who he is. Crazy. They asked me, what about race relations in the United States? Now, I have to say they were pretty bad under Barack Obama, that I can tell you.
This is Roy Moore speaking about African Americans and why he believes they shoot each other.
Scientists who study evolution come up with some of the oddest things, don't they? They tell us we evolved, but they can't explain how mammals, reptiles, birds, all evolved into male and female. They tell us we evolved from something that crawled out of the water, but they have no evidence of that. You know, it reminds me of a story I heard about a scientist who had a frog, and he was going to find out how far the frog would jump, so he put the frog on a platform and he hollered at it. Boo! And that frog just jumped a good ways. He got the frog back and he taped up one of its legs. He put it down and said, boo! The frog jumped, but not quite as far. So he taped the other leg up. And again the frog jumped after he hollered at it, and finally he said, well, I'm going to tape up the back legs. He taped up one back leg and still that frog jumped. So he taped all four legs up. And he put that frog down on the platform and he hollered, boo. Well, guess what? The frog didn't move. So he hollered again, louder, and the frog didn't move. So finally he writes down on his notes, tape up all four legs of frog and it goes deaf. Well, I'm going to tell you, that's the kind of logic they've used in our society today when we have kids driving by shooting each other that they don't even know each other. They're acting like animals because we've taught them they come from animals. They're treating their fellow man with prejudice because we taught them they come from animals, not from God, who despises that sort of thing.
It takes your breath away. You know, they have repeatedly, trashed everything Obama ever did based on he's an angry black man and, he hates white people and, he came from nowhere and who the hell is he? And he's a secret Muslim and you won't believe what we're finding and, And yet they are the ones who have had judgments against them for refusing to rent to African Americans, for convicting in a newspaper article 5 black kids that did nothing in Central Park, the Central Park 5. And they're doing it again with Robert Mueller. They're literally telling you Mueller is the bad guy, Trump is the good guy, and they're doing the same thing on the race issue, saying that race relations were bad under Obama. Listen, this is all to make us crazy.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hey guys, it's Scotty, Randy's producer here, and as many of you know, I grew up in Randy's house. You know, eating her food, watching her TV, and like most kids, ignorantly not following her advice. And one of her biggest pieces of advice was, never take a job in radio, because the big companies that run radio, they suck. Well, I didn't listen and ended up working in radio, and as always, Randy was right, they sucked. But I'm here now, and I can tell you that it takes a lot of chutzpah to break away from the big companies and start your own show. But you know what else it takes? Your support. We are independent media, so the only financial backers we have are you, the best listeners in the world. And we can't do it without you. So please, go to RandiRhodes.com and support the show, buy a stinking podcast, donate some money, and keep us going.
Hello, Progressive Voices tune-in listeners. I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week.
They always target Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, but it's a little more dangerous with this tax bill because they already know by giving huge tax breaks to corporations and to the ultra-wealthy in this country and always selling us on this idea that that will create economic growth and jobs and so forth, which we all know. The reality is, as soon as the deficits begin to rise, as everyone and every analyst says they will under this bill, more than $1 trillion over 10 years, they will have to make mandatory cuts. Medicare, $25 billion every year for 10 years. That's a lot of money.
So they're mandatory? They're set up to be mandatory cuts?
To Medicare, yes.
What about the CHIPS program?
No, the CHIP did not get reauthorized. That's for our kids, for goodness sake.
And remind everybody what CHIPS is.
CHIP is the Children's Health Insurance Program that was funded to help low-income children make sure that they get their basic preventative care, all of the things that kids need to grow up healthy and steady and to get care when they're ill, especially for kids who have chronic serious illness and those parents just can't afford to keep health care going.
Donna, what can people do to stop this, and what encouraging words do you have for all of us?
Well, I think the good thing for all of us at this point, keep calling, of course.
Yes,
all your congressional members. Let them know how disgusted you are with this process. Only 25% of Americans supported this measure they just passed in the Senate. Let's give them that measure a vote.
Yeah,
25%.
absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Check out our show at nursetalksite.com and listen every Saturday and Sunday right here on Progressive Voices.
All things Randy at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
All right, so here again is Sean Hannity saying what Obama said, and then I will play you what Obama actually said.
And also tonight, yes, no class, Barack Obama
Low
back
class.
again.
Yeah,
What is he
Barack
doing?
Obama has
Launching
no
a new
class.
far-left attack against President Trump, warning that America could turn into Nazi Germany. Now, he's speaking at the Economic Club of Chicago, and Obama said the danger today is, quote, growing complacent. We have to tend to this garden of democracy or else things could fall apart quickly. That's what happened in Germany in the 1930s, which, despite the democracy of the Weimar Republic and centuries of high-level cultural and scientific achievements, Adolf Hitler rose to dominate. 60 million people died, so you got to pay attention, and you got to vote.
All right, here is the actual tape of Barack Obama at the Economic Forum in Chicago.
We don't have time to go into detail about everything people should do, but I wouldn't underestimate the very simple act of being engaged, paying attention, and speaking out. I mean, typically that's what it comes down to in a democracy. And I do think because we've been so wealthy and so successful that we get complacent. And assume that things continue the way they have been, just automatically. And they don't. You have to tend to this garden of democracy, otherwise things can fall apart fairly quickly. And we've seen societies where that happens. Right? Now, presumably there was a ballroom here in Vienna in the late 1920s or 30s that looked pretty sophisticated and seemed as if, with the music and the art and the literature and the science that was emerging, it would continue into perpetuity. And then 60 million people died. And the entire world was plunged into chaos. So, you gotta pay attention and vote.
That's what he said. He was saying that we're very lucky. We've been very rich and a very successful country, and people get complacent, which is exactly what Brett and I were talking about before the show, about how people can get complacent when because I was telling him, the scariest thing, the scariest result of Mueller's investigation would be that Mueller finds that the president and his men all were in touch. I mean, not in touch, but were cooperating with Russians and social media efforts to, suppress the vote and hacking and releasing documents that were ill-gotten gains, that were stolen documents into the public. And then Trump was on the bully pulpit, emphasizing WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks. You got to read WikiLeaks. And there were tens of thousands of documents, and nobody really read them, and they were just believing Donald Trump was saying, you won't believe what's in them, just like Obama came from nowhere. Nobody knew him when he was in school, and you wouldn't believe what we're finding. Same thing with WikiLeaks, and that you would then suddenly think that Hillary was running a pedophile ring out of the, ping pong and pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. So, Mueller could find that, Trump was following a script that was written by Putin himself, and that, Manafort and Flynn were doing it because they were going to enrich themselves. Manafort had loans and debts that he owed to Russian oligarchs, and he wanted them forgiven. Flynn had a plan to build Russian nuclear power plants all over the Middle East, and that had fallen apart because Obama put sanctions on Russia. And now all of a sudden he's sitting at the inaugural and he's texting his business partner going, hey, those sanctions will be ripped up. 11 minutes into the inaugural speech going, hey, guess what? The sanctions are going to be ripped up and we're in business again, trying to enrich themselves. And Donald Trump, who owes money to the Russians, would somehow be relieved of his debt. And, and that this was, the plan, and, could lay it all out. And Congress can actually say, okay, so, and the American people would be so complacent that Donald Trump would be proven correct when he said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and still get elected. So that's the scariest part. That is the scariest part of this whole Mueller investigation. Now, on top of that, Donald Trump is campaigning in Pensacola tonight for the known racist Roy Moore, who says things like, families were much tighter back in the slavery days. And he misses that. He really does. He misses the bonds of family that held people together back in, slave days. And, of course, that, blacks are, doing drive-by shootings because they're animals. They're animals. And we've taught them that they're animals. And, wants his brand of Christianity enshrined in the government so that we leave the constitutional principles of law by men and we go to biblical principles of law by God. And nobody can eat shellfish anymore. And, if you lay with a man, they will stone you, apparently, or kill you. I don't. This is so ridiculous. And it's just so freaky what's going on. So Obama goes to Chicago, he's in Chicago, and he's talking to a group of, people who go to economic forums, probably there to talk about this bogus tax cut, who, by the way, people who make up to $50,000 a year would get a whole $330 out of this tax cut. $330, which is less than $1 a day. That's apparently America's price to enable this president to install Christianity as a national religion, which he doesn't even believe in, but he thinks it would be the opiate of the masses. And I hate to tell him, opium is the opiate of the masses. You know, he put Kellyanne Conway in charge of the opioid crisis. Do you know that? I don't know what she's going to, do to connect to addicts, except say, abuse Valium because,
I'd love to see her list of medications.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. But, this is unbelievable. And yes, they are trashing the FBI. And yes, they are trying to sow seeds of doubt into federal law enforcement. And they're trying to tell you that it's so funny. The law and order candidate, Donald Trump, who loved, the police. He loves the police. He loves them. I mean, the blue lives matter. Remember all this? Remember all that? Black lives don't matter. Blue lives matter. But they're doing this to federal law enforcement. They're trashing the FBI. They're trashing Robert Mueller, who was the director. He was the FBI director. They fired James Comey. They fired Sally Yates. They fired Preet Bharara, who was working on the financial crimes in New York City, which probably had tentacles into Donald Trump. I'm almost 100% sure. And now you can see the House GOP just tearing apart the FBI in public, which signals to you that no matter what Mueller finds, they're going to negate it by saying you can't trust him.
If you kicked everybody off Mueller's team who was anti-Trump, I don't think there'd be anybody left. The Democrat National Committee in the Clinton campaign paid the law firm, who paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele.
Can I just interrupt here for a brief moment? Fusion GPS was originally hired by Republicans. Okay.
Who then paid Russians.
And now we have Special Agent Strzok. And that same agent is the one who reportedly interviewed Secretary Clinton in an interview that you and I have never seen conducted that way before.
Whether Strzok was involved in this, that needs to be disclosed to Congress. Whether the dossier was used to generate surveillance with the FISA court on a Trump associate, that needs to be disclosed to Congress.
Can I interrupt here, please? Yes, the dossier was not used and nobody was wiretapped. What happened was Flynn, the moron, was talking to Ambassador Kislyak, a Russian national who was known to be a spy recruiter here in the United States. And they routinely had warrants to surveil all his conversations. And idiot boy Flynn, in one day alone, had 5 conversations with Ambassador Kislyak. And that particular day that he had the 5 conversations, that was recorded because we're always recording Russian nationals, like Kislyak in this country. He's talking about Obama just put sanctions on Russia and, what are we going to do about it? And Kislyak is, asking Flynn, and Flynn's going, don't worry, we'll get Donald Trump. He'll rip up the sanctions. That's what the intercepts show. This was not these were not wiretaps on Flynn specifically. This was idiot boy Flynn, who was the director of national intelligence till Obama fired him for being a wackadoo, being captured on these roving wiretaps that follow Kislyak wherever he went.
Did Peter Strzok, was he involved in taking that to the court?
I'm not going to discuss in this setting anything to do with the FISA court application.
Poor Chris Wray. Poor Chris Wray. Then Gerald Nadler got a chance to ask a couple of questions.
Will you respond to this tweet by the president? Is the FBI's reputation in tatters?
Mr. Chairman, may I have time to answer this question because it's something that matters to me.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Congressman, there is no shortage of opinions out there. What I can tell you is that the FBI that I see is tens of thousands of agents and analysts and staff working their tails off to keep Americans safe from the next terrorist attack, gang violence, child predators, spies from Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. The FBI that I see is tens of thousands of brave men and women who are working as hard as they can to keep people that they will never know safe from harm. And the FBI that I see is reflected in folks like the new class of agents that I swore in at Quantico 2 days ago, hard-charging, high-integrity people like the hostage rescue team and SWAT teams that we send out into all sorts of danger with almost no notice. The FBI that I see is people, decent people, committed to the highest principles of integrity and professionalism and respect. The FBI that I see is respected and appreciated by our partners in federal, state, and local law enforcement, in the intelligence community, by our foreign counterparts, both law enforcement and national.
Oh. You get the drift. Poor Chris Wray, having to defend the tens of thousands of people who do everything from, counterintelligence to gang violence to fraud, financial crimes, risking their lives in conjunction with state and local law enforcement for people who they will never know and people who will never know them. But Fox News wants you to hate them.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Hey, everybody, it's Brett from The Randi Rhodes Show. It's Friday, and that's payday, which doesn't happen without you. I've got a taste of the good life, and now I've got addictions that need to continue. A man's got to eat, and he can't eat without your support. So help Randi support me. Go to RandiRhodes.com/support, and everybody gets fed.
Happy holidays, jerky fans. Herky Jerky knows it's the season to enjoy the world's best jerky and meat sticks, and they want you to save a bundle while doing it. Herky Jerky, first of all, would like to thank you all you fiercely loyal customers, because they had their most successful year thanks to you, despite Mother Nature doing its worst. Jason at Herky Jerky is so grateful that you enjoy his products, and everyone at Herky Jerky is so glad to provide them. So, as a special thank you, Herky Jerky is serving up their best offer of the year for Christmas giving. $10 off any order of $60 or more, or $15 off any order $100 or more without a promo code. Just visit herkyjerky.com. And the now famous bacon jerky, new fat-free and delicious turkey jerky, and all four of the new nitrite and preservative-free flavors, plus good old beef jerky, and all the exotic game jerkies make perfect holiday gifts. Buffalo, elk, venison sticks, 3 different varieties of beef smokies, all make great stocking stuffers. So choose your favorites now. Take advantage of the savings, which also includes free shipping on any 2 packs or more. Everyone at Herky Jerky would like to wish a safe and happy holiday season to all of you, and thank you once again for your loyalty. This offer starts today and it goes through all of December. Happy holidays from herkyjerky.com.
Whether you're listening to me, Mark Levine, each Monday and Wednesday,
or me, Leslie Marshall, each Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday,
you can hear us 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
Matt Lauer joins a long line of people accused of sexual harassment. Many of them have been fired. Whereas the conservatives, the people in politics, the people who have been accused of far, far worse than even these folks, people like, an accused child molester by the name of Roy Moore, or maybe a certain guy who bragged about grabbing women by the pussy. Bragged about it and had dozens of women accuse him of touching them inappropriately. That guy, what's he doing now? He's playing golf, I think. He's also, unfortunately, President of the United States. Again, that's Mark Levine every Monday and Wednesday.
And Leslie Marshall each Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network. Whether you're listening to me, Mark Levine, each Monday and Wednesday,
or me, Leslie Marshall, each Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday,
you can hear us 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
Here's a sample of what you'll hear. Van Jones, he's a correspondent for CNN and a regular guest on political talk shows. Let's talk about your book, Beyond the Messy Truth, how we came apart, how we come together. First of all, how did we come apart?
Well, I think that one thing that's important to remember is that the rebellion in the country that we, saw, whether it's Bernie Sanders, Black Lives Matter, even some of the energy that wound up getting sucked into the Trump campaign, is kind of justified because both political parties for a very long time were, doing dumb stuff.
Again, that's Mark Levine every Monday and Wednesday.
And Leslie Marshall each Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
I hope to represent the people of the United States, not the president. I want to represent our country well, and I don't think there are a lot of people currently in our government that do that.
All right, she's just another celebrity, another Hollywood person who doesn't agree with the president.
The resistance.
Just in case you're not able to see who was doing the speaking, that was Lindsey Vonn, an Olympic skier. She's not a Hollywood personality. She is an what do you call them? An Olympian. She's an Olympian preparing to go to the Olympiad, for which she's trained her entire life, only to be diminished by a news model as another Hollywood celebrity.
Cares?
You know, the last part of her statement was true. There are not a lot of people in government representing us well. Maybe she watched the first 8 minutes of our program and saw that that's true. And not a lot of it has to do with President Trump.
You know what's interesting is you think about it, her ex is Tiger Woods, who played golf with President Trump, a week ago?
Maybe that's why they broke up.
Anyway, so Tiger Woods, no problem, apparently, playing golf with the president. But if she wins, she's not going to the White House.
Yeah, think about that. You got athletes preemptively declaring their resistance to a president as they get the honor. Think about the honor of going to the Olympics and representing, wearing the flag. It's like wearing the flag in combat, in battle. Yeah. It's a team.
Proud too.
You're saying, well, no, it's just we're going to write off our president.
Very un-American.
Lindsey Vonn, who is probably one of the greatest examples of a well-trained, dedicated, work ethic, like solid work ethic American, who's earned the right to be on the American Olympic ski team because she has skied her entire life, to qualify for this event. And somehow a woman in a cocktail dress at 6 o'clock in the morning on 6th Avenue in New York, who shows up for work in a freaking cocktail dress with no stockings and Louboutins, is going to get the final word on whether or not Lindsey Vonn is the proper person to represent America, because I'm questioning her patriotism. Oh. This country and its uber nationalism. I mean, all the signs are there, people. And you know what? That Barack Obama said, you have to tend to the garden of democracy. You can't get complacent. You got to vote. You got to participate. You got to get up. You got to get out. You got to be, read a newspaper. You got to, pay attention, because it does disintegrate rather quickly, as Trump said in all his campaign speeches. Oh, you'll see it, and it's going to happen quickly. Now, how in the world is all this happening when only 32% of the American people approve of this man, Donald Trump? Because when you weren't paying attention, congressional districts got gerrymandered into something other than a Democratic district. It got gerrymandered into a safe zone for crazy people. They diluted the vote of the people so that they feel so safe in their district that they don't give a rat's ass. Hence the conclusion that the reason they're trashing Robert Mueller and his investigation and whatever it finds or does not find ahead of the findings is because Congress is preparing to ignore it, because they feel so safe. And if that happens, I want you to all look up the Enabling Act. I want you to just Google the Enabling Act and see what's in store for you. Once you render a congressional body or a House of Parliament or a government, a democratic government, useless, in regard to the representation of the people, and you create an autocrat because Congress will not act or cannot act, then all bets are off. You no longer have a democracy, you have a dictator. And that's what Obama was talking about. And, for them to continually call him a Nazi, continually say that he was the racist, is all to drive you crazy. It's to confuse the few hangers-on who are still hanging on by their fingernails in support of Donald Trump. And it's frightening. All right, Mia in East Bay, San Francisco.
Oh, hi, Randi. Oh, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you. What you shared yesterday. I know you're not talking about this, but I just want to say I'm from the Bay Area, and I hope you come back again, and you will, no one will, I hope you can come back, stand up, or do whatever you want to do. But I totally relate to what you're saying, and I think it's ridiculous because I personally understand how traumatic it is and what real abuse is, and I think it minimizes and it makes it harder for women, not easier.
Oh, what are we talking about now? Now we're talking about Al?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to talk about him? Oh.
No, I don't care. I mean, we have Trent Franks resigning last night, which was like the last. That's where we left off yesterday. We were just getting the breaking news that Trent Franks was going to make an announcement. Now, I want to know, how do you train for Trent Franks? How they're going to do like sexual abuse and sexual harassment training in Congress?
Don't ask somebody that.
Okay, the first thing I'd like to say is if they can't tell the difference between taking a photo and putting your hand around his waist, Tina Dupuy at The Atlantic, who mentioned me in her article, I just found out. I mean, I only read half of the article. She's using me as an example of what's wrong with women.
What?
Yeah, because I don't.
Weird.
Now, she grouped me. I'm in good company, though. She put me with Chelsea Handler. Okay, because Chelsea Handler also knows Al, and we were sitting there saying, we know Al, and Al isn't a sexual abuser. He's not aggressive. He's not malicious. The reason that he kisses you like that is because he's just a full frontal kisser, and there are people that do that, and there's nothing aggressive about it. There's nothing sexual. And if you've ever been molested, or if you've ever been raped, or if you've ever been sexually assaulted, you know the difference. Okay. And so that's what I was saying. And so she quotes me and, just like 2 sentences or whatever, because this is the woman that said that she felt objectified.
I know. Look at her. I mean,
and illegitimate as a woman because Al put his hand around her waist while taking a picture. I mean, honest to...
Think about her husband.
But wait. So I want to say this. If Congress is going to start doing, sexual assault and harassment training, how are they going to structure the class if they can't tell the difference between taking a photo and putting your hand on someone's waist and Trent Franks saying to his staffers, be my baby mama, carry my baby.
Yeah.
How do you teach that? How are you going to teach that? How are you going to put that in a training manual?
But also, I want to say that you have to have it. You have to have a same thing. So if a woman does that, is she harassing it? So it's like everyone's focused on the men. But if you're going to make something that trivial, like someone putting putting your hand around your waist. So if a woman does that, is she harassing the man? You see what I mean? It's like if you put things at such a trivial level, then you have to have the same rules to apply to women as men. And so we're going to live in a society where everyone has to be like, okay, I can't, take a photo with someone and put my hand on the waist because they might feel like they're being violated.
Listen, the idea that they can't see things on a spectrum, that they can't discriminate between taking a photo and putting your hand around somebody's waist and her ridiculous feeling of being objectified. She actually says in her article, and that's as far as I got before I got nauseous, apparently if I continued on, I would see me and Chelsea Handler being criticized, which I think is a great compliment. But the idea that she says she doesn't let her husband hold her about the waist in public because that diminishes her as a woman. I mean, I don't want to. I don't even want to go there. There's something so wrong with this direction. If we blow this Me Too moment, which is so important, and so I've been waiting for 30 years for this Me Too moment, and we go all crazy about not being able to differentiate between somebody who is, gregarious or friendly or affectionate, and somebody who's lording their power over you to objectify you. And if you can't tell the difference, I say let the writer put down her pencil and have herself a squat on the cosmic utensil, because if she keeps on going down that bad road, we're all going to be in burqas.
And also
for our own protection.
And also the problem with it is making him resign before there actually was an ethics hearing, so we could actually hear her testimony and hear his testimony to actually distinguish between us. So by him leaving, it just muddies the water, and so we never know the real truth. And that also makes it worse by not having it actually come to fruition.
Yeah, well, I think we know the truth, and the horrible, horrible, horrible truth is that Leanne Tweeden was on a USO tour, putting herself out there as in a skit where Al Franken was going to invite a member of the military to come up on the stage and kiss her. And the precedent was set in the skit that he would kiss her as an example for the guy who was going to, be called from the audience to kiss her. So apparently she has no problem being kissed by a stranger, only a problem with being kissed by Al. That's the horrible, horrible truth. The other one, the Tina Dupuy, when you take a photo with her, all men be warned, don't touch her. Don't touch her.
Also, I don't know if you heard this really quick. The Tweeden, she also grabbed the country star's ass. Like, that she was, she's an ass grabber too. So it's okay when she grabs the ass. And Tom Arnold said that she was coached by Roger Stone and his friend to do the whole thing.
I saw that. But I don't,
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, listen, this is really sad. And when the entire party gangs up on you, that's one thing I do know how it feels. Okay. And as you said, if you've ever been sexually assaulted, this kind of minimalization of activity to be equated with something that's serious, with something that has to do with a man lording his power over you because he's in a position to punish you or retaliate against you or, is humiliating you because he can. The mixing of these two ideas it makes women who have really been through something just sick to their stomachs.
Yeah.
I mean, Trent Franks asking his staffers, in his own statement, this is the sick part about what Trent Franks wrote. In his own statements, he says that he regrets making and he refers to these women as his subordinates. This is one of these uber religious right-wing lunatics, who apparently went through IVF with a surrogate, which requires some embryos die. Oh yeah, some embryos have to give their whole lives in order to get one embryo to take, right, with an in vitro fertilization and a surrogate situation. A lot of people have done it, but to sit there, I'm pro-life, except when it comes. And then you've got another one who, I forget his name now, who asked, he's also a pro-life guy and blah, 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 except that he had an affair with a girl, and when she thought she was pregnant, it was just a scare. It was a pregnancy scare. He tells her, have an abortion. Yeah, and then you've got Blake Farenthold, okay, who paid the taxpayer dollars settled a sexual harassment lawsuit against him for $84,000. You got Joe Barton, who was writing to constituents and campaign people that would campaign for him, saying, "Are you wearing panties? Do you wear panties?" But Al Franken was rehearsing a skit that involved Leanne Tweeden eventually being kissed by a stranger in the audience, and that was the reason he had to resign. And Tina Dupuy took a photo, and she felt diminished because he pulled her around the waist. Don't you dare touch a... Don't, we need a society where women are in burqas for their own safety now. And, of course, they cannot leave the house unaccompanied because we're always going to need a witness. And you can't touch us. Maybe we need to wear gloves. I don't know how Tina Dupuy I know how she feels about the waist. How do you feel about the elbow? Like if somebody would hold you by the elbow and, help you down the stairs, or help, grab your shoulder or your hand to keep you from falling. Karen Tumulty, who's a great reporter, I guess we were at a convention. We were going to a convention. I was carrying so much of my own gear, and I fell. I'm a faller. I fall a lot, as some people will remember. She helped me up, and she grabbed me by the elbow. Did she sexually harass me? Karen! I don't know, Karen. I got questions about that day. This is very wrong. This is very twisted. Very, 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 very bizarre territory we're in. And it all equates to this misogynistic, racially divided, Roy Moore can do whatever he wants. The president is a king. He can anoint society.
Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.